In this week's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Titan Fitness ceiling-mounted multi-grip pull-up bar, which is a mouthful. In last week's video, if you watched that, you know that we talked about the ultimate DIY option for a pull-up bar, or at least that was the intention, and the video turned into when should you and when should you not do the DIY route when it comes to a pull-up bar. So if you're interested in that, check that video out after you watch this one. But in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the quality of this product. We're going to be taking a look at the price. We'll compare it to other ceiling mounted options, other wall mounted options, other rack mounted options, and also talk about the DIY options and kind of get an overview of how this particular option stacks up against the competition out there in terms of value for money, to see what is the best pull-up bar option for you. Okay, that's cool. So we have a little URL code so you can look up the manual online. So we'll hold on to that just in case we need it. I feel like this is going to be pretty simple, so we might not need a manual, but hold on to that just in case. Okay, so the grips feel pretty good. The knurling is actually way better than I thought it was with Titan. I don't expect much out of their knurling, but this knurling, especially for a pull-up bar, because you don't need quite as aggressive a knurling anyway as what you would need on a barbell or something like that. But this is pretty good knurling. Now, the one thing I will say right off the bat, which surprised me, maybe it shouldn't have surprised me, but there actually is a little bit of rust already in a few places on this knurling. There's a few places that you can probably see in the camera where the powder coat is completely gone, like right there. There are a few scuffs on the underside of the handle there and there. There's some powder coat missing there and there. And in true Titan fashion, the welds on this thing are not very clean at all. So that's, again, one of the things that you deal with Titan is the quality control isn't very good. Now, if this were a barbell or something like that, I would be a little bit more annoyed. But for 130 bucks, a pull-up bar with surprisingly good knurling, I'm not gonna hold that too much against them for the price. You know, this feels pretty good. Now, once we get it put up and start using it, then we'll kind of get some more impressions. Come on, okay. The welds on these uprights, the part that actually hangs from the ceiling, the welds on this are actually a little bit cleaner. There's not any scuffs on this part, so this part is actually of a higher quality than the pull-up bar itself, which is strange because it's not really the part that matters. And ironically, the nicest part on this whole pull-up bar system is the name badge. They made sure to get that Titan name badge absolutely perfect. This thing looks flawless, but the rest of it needs a little bit of work. I went to the URL that they have provided for the instruction manual just to take a look at it. I don't think it's that complicated looking, but I just wanted to take a look at it, see what they have on there. And let me read you the entirety of the instructions. Are you ready? I'm gonna read the entirety of the instruction manual right now. So strap yourself in, get a snack ready. Here we go. No assembly instructions required. I mean, I get that it's not that complicated of a product, but it seems like you could. Moving on. getting into the final review for this bad boy, there are some very positive things that I have to say, but then also some very negative things that I have to say as well. Starting with the negatives, you'll notice that if you've been paying attention to my clothes at all, this video has taken place over the course of 3 days. It has taken me 3 days to review a pull-up bar. You would think that putting 4 screws in the ceiling and 4 bolts into the pull-up bar would take like 5 minutes. And you would be right, it would take like 5 minutes, but the issue is there aren't 4 screws included in the box. Instead of screws, they give you these little anchor pieces, and that's all fine and dandy if you weren't screwing into floor joists, which is what I assume is going to be the most common scenario for most people out there. If you're putting this in a garage or in a basement, you're probably screwing to floor joists. And if you were to put a little anchor like this, so you see it has this little wedge piece at the top, and then as you tighten this bolt down, it has this little metal sleeve with the slits in it. It mushrooms out to expand to hold the bar in place. And that's not going to work if you're screwing into a vertical piece of wood, because if you're mushrooming something out in a vertical piece of wood, you're just going to split your floor joist long ways, and that's obviously not what you're going to want. So the hardware that's included in the box is absolutely useless. So you're going to have to go to your local hardware store to get some screws. We used 5/16 inch screws and then some washers to hold the bar in place. So factor in an extra couple of bucks for screws into the price of the pull-up bar, and an extra trip to the hardware store into the purchase of your pull-up bar as well. One other negative note about the installation process is that the images on Titan's website show this pull-up bar hanging downward versus going up like I have it here. And if you install it that way, you're going to be losing the functionality of these two 45-degree grips right here, because rather than pointed down to a place where you could actually hold them and do pull-ups, they're going to be pointed up. So they're going to be out like this, and you're not going to be able to do pull-ups like that. If you're screwing into floor joists, you're not going to have to worry about the ceiling anyway, because you're going to have all of that extra headroom. So even if you have it going up like this, you're going to have plenty of clearance to not hit your head on the ceiling. But after kind of playing around with this, I would say even if you're screwing into a solid ceiling, you could still use the pull-up bar this way and not have to flip it down. You would have to be very careful, because it's going to be very, very close to hitting your head on the ceiling once your chin clears the bar. But I would say, based on me kind of playing around and looking where my head's at with the floor joist, as long as you kind of have your head, tilted back and you're looking up versus having your head straight looking forward, you should be able to do your pull-ups without hitting the ceiling, even with the bar like this. So there's no reason to do that underslung method for most people and lose the functionality of these 45-degree grips. And then of course there are still the negatives that I mentioned in the unboxing portion of this video. There are several places where the powder coat was already rubbed off before it even came out of the box. There's a couple of places where there's a little bit of rust on the bar. This thing is slightly, emphasis on the slightly, it is slightly warped. I put a level on there and it was to the point where I didn't really want to mess with, shimming it or anything like that to try to make it perfectly level. It was right there on it, but it is worth mentioning. Getting into the positives, really there are 2 positives about this pull-up bar in my mind. One of them being the knurling. This pull-up bar has very aggressive knurling, which for me is a great thing. I love aggressive knurling on equipment. Actually, it's aggressive to the point where for some people you might actually add this to the cons list rather than the pros list. For me, the more aggressive the better. I love aggressive knurling, but this is some of the most aggressive knurling that I have experienced on a piece of equipment, period. So if you don't like aggressive knurling, do keep that in mind. But for me, I do count that as a positive, especially considering that most of Titan's equipment is a little bit more on the passive side when it comes to knurling. And the other good thing about this product is the price. With Titan equipment, of course, you're getting free shipping. So tax and all, for me, this thing ended up being a total of about 126 bucks, something like that, keeping in mind that you are gonna have to buy 4 screws and 4 washers, since you're gonna have to use those rather than those anchors, so add a couple bucks to that. So just round up and say about 130 bucks, which is still a pretty good price, factoring in the hassle of getting those screws from the hardware store. 130 bucks for this thing, and you're getting your wide grip 45-degree angle handles, you're getting a wider grip neutral grip, you're getting a narrow grip neutral grip, you're getting your 45-degree grip, you're getting your underhand chin grip. So all of the different grip options that most people are going to care about, you know, with the exception of if you want like the globe grips or something like that, but then you're talking about a completely separate product anyway. So all of the grips that most people are ever going to want for about 130 bucks total. So it is a very good value. Are there better pull-up bars out there? Yes. Are there cheaper pull-up bars out there? Yes, but even with all of my complaints, I would say that this is probably the best pull-up bar for the money. If you're interested in making a DIY pull-up bar, check out my ultimate multi-grip DIY pull-up bar here, or if you're curious about which grip is best for back growth, check out this video. As always, God bless you and your family, and we'll see you Sunday. Then this actually might be a little bit too blah, 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 blah. Based on my experience with 45-degree grips. Now, if you're, man, what's wrong with me? Okay, I'm gonna cut this clip, but get my thoughts together, and we're gonna come back and start at that same place.